Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Jerron Harrington, back to hit you another video. And today, we are going to be continuing Boruto Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl, the Tail Beast Drug Arc, Part 1. But as always, if you're a fan of today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. As we continue with today's story, we now enter into the Tail Beast Drug Arc. In this story, we're going to see the ramifications from various storylines left from the Naruto Yokai Shippuden story. How will the after effects be when former members of the Foundation look to make their move against the Hidden Leaf? How will Boruto and Sarada deal with the mistreatment of their clan's past sins, that being in the form of Madara Uchiha, the one of whom almost brought the world to ruin during the events of the Fourth Great Ninja War? And how will Sarada, who aspires to become Hokage, be able to overcome that hatred, to truly come into her own as the shinobi she was always meant to be? For all this and more, stay tuned as we continue today's story. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Following the death of Danzo Shimura, his crimes against the Hidden Leaf, as well as the secrets of his organization known as the Foundation, was revealed to the public of Konoha. As such, many members of the Foundation found themselves being ostracized from the village, many of whom that shared in the ideals of Danzo, who in their minds served as the true guardians and the peacemakers of the Hidden Leaf. A strong feeling of betrayal festered in them all, despite the efforts from those like Kakashi and later Naruto, who attempted to sway such notions, believing that all should not pay for the sins of some. But none more so embodied this trait than one particular shinobi, a young man at the time named Tanuki Shimura. Tanuki was the son of Danzo. From the day of his birth, he served in the Foundation. He idolized his father and his ideology, believing that one day his father would serve proud as the Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, and that his efforts would not be in vain. However, this was not to be the fate of Danzo. In fact, when he had received news of Danzo's death, Tanuki truly felt isolated and left alone in the world. For the young man had lost both his father, years after he had lost his mother in more tragedy. You see, Tanuki's mother died during the events of the Nine Tails attack, all those years ago. And ever since then, Tanuki held a great disdain towards not only the Uchiha, but towards the Nine Tails, and by extension, its Jinchuriki in Naruto Uzumaki. For Tanuki Shimura, His life had gone down in a spiral. He was the child of a mother who was killed in a senseless attack perpetrated by an Uchiha in his eyes. Years later, his father, killed by Uchiha all the same, in Satomi and Itachi Uchiha. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, not only was the foundation wiped from Konoha, its members ostracized and scattered, left by the Leaf Village they served to protect. But then that very Jinchuriki would marry an Uchiha and would become the village's 7th Hokage. Tanuki grew in hatred towards the Hidden Leaf, living on the run with his wife, who would die during childbirth, giving him his only child and daughter. Wrapped in his bitterness and hatred, Tanuki kept himself in silence. Being hidden away from the world, Tanuki found as many members of the Foundation as he could, many of whom were skilled in various aspects of ninjutsu and other sciences. He recruited many rogue shinobi to his cause, for his plan was twofold: the destruction of the Hidden Leaf Village, and as well as retribution against the clan that had wronged him long ago, that being the Uchiha Uzumaki. At the focal point of his plan lied his daughter. Even though the young girl did not know it at the time, as her father looked down upon her, she would serve as the catalyst for his hatred. He would use her. He would raise her and mold her into the perfect weapon, to which he would exact his vengeance. And soon, his vengeance would be at hand. Our story continues in the present day. Boruto and Sarada, along with their other classmates, were adjusting well to their life in the Ninja Academy. For them, the terms of learning the ways of the shinobi, it wasn't as difficult. Of course, when you're the children of two prodigies in their own right, things seem to naturally come easy. But still, there was more to the academy than just learning of ninja life. There was also of learning of other type of career paths that were held out for them in the world. So much so that the academy had actually instituted a work studies program, allowing for the students to see how others fared in their other trades, or those who chose not to take the shinobi path. While the work studies were up and coming, there was also another development for Boruto and his class. It started on a day that seemed to be as ordinary as any other. Boruto was sitting in class on his desk, not paying attention to much since it hadn't even started yet. Everyone was within their own cliques and groups talking, Boruto sitting with Shikadai and Hoki, as well as having made friends with the likes of Dinky and even Iwabe. Inojin would even pop in from time to time, while Sarada would sit with her own group of friends. Her closest friend of all of them were Chocho and Sumire. No one knew much about Sumire or where she had come from. She was just the most responsible and had become the class rep. She was always shy and soft-spoken, and she was always someone to look for peace and prosperity whenever possible. Of course, there was also Riho Inuzuka. She and Sarada had a friendly rivalry, to say the least, at least one that had been passed down to them by their mothers, as both of their mothers were former members of Team 7, that being in Satomi Uchiha Uzumaki, as well as Sakura Inuzuka, formerly Sakura Haruno. The two of them were well matched and skilled, to say the least, not being too far gone, as Riho came with her own set of skills. As the class was called into attention, Shino would stand before them and usher at the doorway as a new student made his way inside. The boy's name was Mitsuki, and he was a transfer from the Hidden Sound Village, as a bit of a work exchange sort of agreement. Mitsuki was friendly, as he introduced himself to everyone. He was quick to make eye contact with Boruto. Boruto not paying too much attention to it at first, since he didn't really know much about Mitsuki at all. But for Mitsuki, for what he had come for, he had deemed that Boruto would do nicely, as he felt there was a lot that he could learn from him. But also, he was in search of something. If he had to put it into words, he was looking for the sun that would be to his moon. As Mitsuki made his way, greeting and introducing himself to everyone, Iwabe, being a bit of the knucklehead that he was, always took to trying to size up the new competition, always wanting to see what they were capable of. Of course, Mitsuki and his simple-minded nature didn't really pay much attention to it at all. That was until Iwabe asked for a spar. When the time was come, the arrangements would be made, and Iwabe would take on Mitsuki one-on-one, everyone getting a chance to see what the new student was capable of. And to say what he did was shocking would be an understatement. Even for someone like Boruto, being considered one of the prodigies of the new generation, even he struggled in his spar against Iwabe. However, the same could not be said for Mitsuki, who made short work of his former superior. So much so to the point that the others had to get involved in stopping him, as he could have potentially have taken things too far and potentially hurt Iwabe, or even worse. Mitsuki would apologize, since after all he didn't want to cause too much trouble, and he really didn't know his own strength to a degree. He would introduce himself to Boruto, stating quite openly that he found him interesting, and if possible, he wanted to be friends and observe him. Again, Boruto was put off by this, but he didn't really see any reason not to. Everyone needed a friend after all, even if they were a bit odd. But it wasn't just Boruto that he had taken note of. He had also taken note of Sarada as well. He found the two of them to be rather fascinating, the children of the Hokage. So similar, yet so different. It wasn't just in the fact of one being a boy or one a girl, but the way they chose to approach things, the way they fought, the way they acted and used their discernment was also different. But yet you still saw the aspects of them being twins after all. They seemed to always be on the same wavelength, as if they always knew what the other was really thinking. All the same, he was impressed by the both of them. As the school day came to an end, Boruto and Sarada would go and pick up Jiraiya from daycare, as the three children would walk home, followed by their daily routine as always. They would help with the cleaning of the house and anything else that needed to be done. Boruto and Sarada would get through their homework, which wasn't really too difficult for them. If for anything that they inherited from their parents, at least on their mother's side it was good study habits. Well, for Sarada, she developed good study habits. For Boruto, he seemed to slack in that area to a degree. Not because he didn't know it, but rather it was because he was so good at studying that he often found it to be boring, and rather he would want to get himself into something a lot more serious, like ninjutsu or training or things of that nature. Before long, dinner would be done, and Sarada would ask for Boruto to stop by the Hokage's office and drop something off for their father. Of course, Boruto didn't really mind, but at the same time, it was a bit of a walk, and by the time he got back home it would be dark. But Sarada was already busy doing something, and so he was the only one that could go and do it. He would send his shadow clone, but something could always go wrong and the clone might not make it there for whatever reason. So with no choice, he would take the bag with his father's clothing as well as dinner, and would make his way to the Hokage's office. The sun was just starting to set once Boruto would arrive. Making his way through, he would see the regular guards and he would say hello, before getting to the office just as Shikamaru, the Hokage's assistant, was walking out. Shikamaru would say hello to Boruto, asking him how he was doing and how the academy was treating him. Boruto would respond with the same old, same old. The academy seemed rather easy for the most part. Of course, while ninjutsu training and other aspects of shinobi life were fun, when it came to doing everything else, it just didn't really appeal to him all that much. Shikamaru simply laughed, remarking that school could always be a drag. He was going on a smoke break anyway, and so the room would be open for him and his father. As Boruto made his way inside, he would see the Hokage's desk just stacked with tons and tons of paperwork. As he made his way in, he would see his father slumped at his desk, almost half asleep. As a lazily-looking Naruto would look up at his son, who had left his bag and things on the couch inside of the room, before grabbing the other bag with his dirty clothes to be taken home to be washed, Boruto would bring him his food, and Naruto would thank him, as he asked his son how things were going at home. Boruto would explain that for the most part everything was fine, and everything had pretty much been how it normally was. School was going well for him and Sarada, and Jiraiya was doing fine at daycare for the most part. It wouldn't be too long now that Jiraiya would soon probably start his own career at the academy as well. For Naruto, just thinking about that made him wonder just how much time had changed. It seemed like just yesterday, both he and Satomi were running around trying to change Boruto and Sarada's diapers. Now their children were soon to be graduating from the academy and were going to be going on ninja missions, and his youngest could soon be the follow. As he looked around, he felt a bit nostalgic, but at the same time a bit saddened. The time just seemed to pass by so quickly for him. Sometimes he just wished that things could just be at a standstill so that he could appreciate them a little bit longer. But all the same, he knew that time would progress and that it waited for no one. So there was nothing to do but make the most of it. As Boruto looked around though at his desk, he would laugh a little bit as he saw a few photos. One in particular of himself when he was younger. It was a picture of him with his sister, along with Naruto and Satomi, who was then pregnant with Jiraiya. It was actually one of the last few times that they spent as a family together constantly. It was right before when Jiraiya was born, and it was around that time that Jiraiya was born, not too long after, that Naruto would then become Hokage. They reflected on those old times, wishing that they could have them back for just a little bit longer. Naruto was getting ready to apologize once again, since he knew that this couldn't be easy for his children. But Boruto would stop him right then and there, telling him that he was the Hokage, and that this was his duty and something that he needed to do, and that they understood. Of course, they would appreciate it if he could stop by every now and then, since Sarada did have a tendency to stay up a little too late, waiting in the kitchen for Naruto to return, and Boruto would have to carry her to bed. Naruto would then chuckle and would promise that he would try to stop by a bit more if possible, as he reached up to his son and patted him on the head, telling him to hurry on along home, and that if he wanted, he could send a shadow clone to accompany him at least. Although Boruto would say that that was fine since it wouldn't be too far, and besides, his dad needed all the strength he could get if he was going to get work done. With that, Boruto would wave to his father goodbye as he left the Hokage's office, Naruto smiling as he went to eat his dinner before getting back to work. As Boruto walked home though, the sky now becoming dark, as night had befallen the village hidden in the leaves. There was a tinge of tension hanging within the air. Boruto couldn't fully describe it, but if he had to, he felt as though he were being watched, as if there was something out there in the dark just looking at him. However, every time Boruto turned around, and every time Boruto looked, he couldn't see anything. Before long, he thought that everything was alright. As he was making his way, out of nowhere, there would be a large explosion that would occur. There would instantly be fire all around in one district of Konoha. As Boruto looked, he tried to see what was happening. The only thing he could hear were the screams of citizens trying to escape. Without thinking about it, Boruto would instantly jump onto the scene. As he looked around, he saw some trapped within their homes, others within various businesses, as a fire was starting to spread massively. Boruto made his way inside. Working through the flames, he helped a few people get out as quickly as he could. Before long, more were arriving, as other shinobi had come out of nowhere to help escort others and put out the fire. As they did so, Boruto would hear the screams of a few of the citizens. From one elderly woman in particular, she looked up at one of the shinobi guards who was helping her out of her home. She yelled that there were eyes, those wicked red eyes. She saw them. She saw those wicked red eyes right before the flames started. The people were trying to calm her down, asking her what she meant by this. What wicked red eyes was she talking about? But yet, no one truly knew. From out of nowhere, Naruto would appear right beside Boruto. He had sent in a few of his shadow clones and they had gone to help save some of the citizens. The people thankful that the Hokage had been here in time. Naruto would turn to his son and ask him if everything was alright, seeing that he was a bit scuffed up. Boruto remarked that everything was alright and that he didn't know what had happened, but it was just that from out of nowhere, a major fire broke out, and there was some woman yelling about glowing red eyes. The second that Naruto heard this, he would move to try to speak to the woman as soon as possible, as well as help coordinate and make sure that everything was fine there. Just to be on the safe side, Naruto would send a shadow clone with Boruto to hurry him on home. They tried to make small talk, but Naruto knew that his father was in a hurry, and that the clone probably couldn't afford to do very much. But still, all the same though, he did appreciate it, as the two of them made their way back home. And as for that presence that Boruto thought he felt, he couldn't sense it at all for the rest of the trip, and he made it safely back home, as the Naruto clone would then puff into smoke and disappear. As Boruto made his way back inside, Sarada would step out of her room and ask if everything was okay. Boruto would tell her that everything was fine and there was nothing to worry about. He would tell her about the fire that broke out and how crazy it was, but thankfully it wasn't too far from the Hokage's office, so there was nothing really to worry about, since Dad was there. Relieved, Sarada would go back to her room, as she had a bit more studying to do before she went to sleep. And as for Boruto, he went into his room as well, deciding that he was just going to relax for a bit before he drifted off to sleep as well. Within the night of Konoha, Mitsuki would be sitting on top of a tree, with a tiny white snake coming from his robe. As he listened to the snake intensely, almost conversing with it, he would remark that it seemed as though they were now beginning to make their moves. He asked what he should do for now, and he simply confirmed that he was simply to stay and observe, and to wait until further instructions were given. And with that, Mitsuki would simply nod in approval as a full moon shined over Konoha. He could tell that things were about to get interesting. The next day, as Boruto and Sarada awoke, breakfast would be made as normal, and the two would make their way to dropping off Jiraiya. As they did so, they took the same route to the academy as they always had. As they did so, they would hear yelling coming from nearby. Out of curiosity, they made their way to see what was happening. As they did so, it looked like it was a rally of sorts. There was a man standing above a crowd, speaking loud and intently as they all gathered around him to listen. People of Konoha, when are we going to wake up and realize that we have been lied to this whole time? How much longer are we going to suffer under the tyranny of the Hokages and of those that have come before them? During the last great war, our very enemy, Madara Uchiha, almost destroyed the very world that we lived in. And yet, what reparations have been taken since then? Treacherous Uchiha have been forgiven. And now look, demon spawns of the very sort now roam our village, now with the backing and aid of the very Hokage. How much longer are we going to suffer and be lied to? It was under the shadiness that various ones that tried to stand up against such tyranny have been killed and silenced. How much longer are we going to suffer? The man continued on in his tirade, both Boruto and Sarada feeling very nervous at his words. From a young age, the children unfortunately had to learn a very harsh truth about the world. For as progressive as it had become, there were still those who had negative views from the past. Of course, the details of the Fourth Great Shinobi War were kept close to the vest, as to keep from any unnecessary civil unrest. But from time to time, there would be those who would try to spark the embers and the flames of hatred. Of course, there was only so much that anyone could do, and both Naruto and Satomi knew this. It was the reason why Uncle Itachi never stayed in the village too long. Even with the truth being revealed, there were still those who could not accept it. And to make matters worse, when a few details leaked out about those responsible for the Fourth Great Ninja War, that being that the two were actually former Uchiha, one being Madara Uchiha himself, it only made the situation go from bad to worse. Of course, public opinion for the most part were in favor of the Uchiha, or what remained of them. Satomi had never become a rogue criminal, and she was hailed as one of the heroes of the Fourth Great Ninja War, alongside Naruto, who would become the 7th Hokage. But still, there were those that had their misgivings, who wondered if such a matrimony could really be justifiable. After all, it had not been too long ago that people did not look too kindly towards the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, or the Uchiha. And now the fact that they had made this marriage, an alliance if you will, and were pretty much omnipotent over the village, it left others to ponder their true motives. Boruto would see the worried expression on Sarada's face, and he would take his sister as far away as they could, as he knew all too well that this was something that upset her. Sarada wanted to be the Hokage. She wanted to love and protect her village. And yet even still, unfortunately, for as much good as she wanted to do, there were always going to be those that would look down upon her without favor. As the two left to make their way back to the academy, not too far from them, another large fire would break out. The two would look on instantly, and they would hear the screams and the panic of others. Both Boruto and Sarada would rush to see what was happening. As they did so, they would see people running for their lives as multiple fires began to break out over and over again. There would be loud roars and cries as more shinobi would come by instantly to try to help. Throughout the destruction, both Boruto and Sarada would see a mother and their child about to be crushed. They would rush over instantly using their shadow clones and would help get them out of the way. They would be thanked, however, they would continue onwards as other shinobi arrived to help with the evacuation, as the fires were quickly put out. Although as they were, both Boruto and Sarada would see scratch marks among the flames. It looked like a beast had rummaged through it all. With nothing that they could do, both Boruto and Sarada would quickly make their way to the academy. And for most of the day, everything seemed fine. That was until midway through their class with Shino Sensei. The doors would open immediately as two Anbu would make their way inside, one standing in front of Boruto's desk and the other in front of Sarada's. They had moved so quickly that no one could tell what was going on, and instantly, Shino Sensei would sense what was happening, and he asked why they were doing this. The two Anbu would simply look to Shino Sensei, before looking back to both Sarada and Boruto, as they declared the two of them were being placed under arrest. The charge: arson. Both Boruto and Sarada looked at one another absolutely shocked, having no idea why they were being charged, or what on earth could possibly be going on. However, they could say or do nothing, as the two Anbu escorted them from out of the academy, everyone watching onwards from the windows, and both Boruto and Sarada looking at one another worriedly as they were taken away. This concludes Boruto Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl, Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 1. If you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that is to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned next Thursday afternoon as we will continue Boruto Naruto Yokai, What If Sasuke Uchiha Was a Girl, the Tailed Beast Drug Arc, Part 2. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.